Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a genuinely fascinating piece of human history, the first guides and the real origins of Stone Age leadership. Now, to keep pace with the urgent, high-stakes survival story we're about to tell, our whiteboard stickman visuals are going to be moving fast, changing up every 3 seconds or so. So buckle up.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to literally put yourself in this exact scenario. You're alive 40,000 years ago and things are looking grim. Your group is completely out of food. You look up and there's this massive dark storm rolling in fast. And just to make it a total nightmare, somebody spots a rival tribe lurking right over the next ridge. In the middle of all this sheer chaos, the whole group just freezes. Everyone turns and looks at one singular person, waiting in dead silence for them to figure out what the heck they're going to do next. So why them, right? Why that specific person? It is a huge historical mystery when you actually stop and think about it. I mean, back in 40,000 BCE, there were absolutely no kings issuing royal decrees, no presidents signing laws, no elections, no ballots, nothing like that. Yet somebody had to make the call. When do we pack up? Where do we hunt? How do we handle this rival tribe before things get violent?
To really get this, we've got to completely strip away all our modern biases. When we picture a leader today, our brains just naturally jump to kings and heavy gold crowns, or generals barking orders at huge armies, right? We think about inherited, top-down power. But ancient hunter-gatherers lived in a completely different world. We're talking incredibly intimate groups, usually just small bands of maybe 20 to 100 people. You knew everybody else's business, there were no permanent governments, no institutions, just people.
Which naturally brings up the question, if there's no government, who actually takes the reins? Was it just the strongest person? Did the biggest, most jacked hunter automatically get to call the shots just by bullying everyone else? Or, I don't know, maybe it was the smartest person, the one who could outthink the group, or the oldest, just based purely on the fact they'd survived the longest. We always kind of assume early human dynamics were brutal and simple, but the reality? Way more complex.
Let's actually dismantle that whole alpha male myth right now. You might think muscle equals power, but survival back then took way more than just brute strength. Imagine you've got this incredibly brave hunter. He catches tons of meat, but he's completely selfish. He won't share a bite with the rest of the hungry group. Well, anthropologists tell us that guy wouldn't earn a shred of trust. Nobody likes a prehistoric show-off. Actually, the good leaders exhibited completely different traits. They were wildly generous, they calmed people down and settled arguments, they shared their food freely and went out of their way to protect the vulnerable.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it completely flips our perspective. Leadership was earned, not inherited. In the Stone Age, taking charge was absolutely never about being the boss and just barking orders at people. It was 100% about earning respect through your actions. The people who actually helped everyone succeed, they naturally became the ones whose advice held the most weight. You couldn't just demand to be in charge. The community essentially elevated you because they trusted you with their actual lives.
And if you look right here at this table, you can see how incredibly fluid ancient leadership was. It adapted instantly to whatever specific situation they were facing. So if the group is prepping for a really dangerous hunt, the most experienced hunter obviously takes the lead. But say they're crossing some strange, unfamiliar territory, well, then the local environment expert steps up. Or what if a bitter feud breaks out between two families? A calm, respected elder would step in to diffuse the tension. So leadership wasn't this permanent job title you clutched onto forever. It shifted seamlessly depending on the challenge of the day. A really great way to picture this is like a modern sports team. Think about basketball. You've got that one star player who's the undisputed leader on offense, calling the plays, driving the ball. But the absolute second there's a turnover, a completely different player shines and takes total command on defense. Different life or death situations just call for different human strengths. But hey, human nature is human nature, whether it's today or 40,000 years ago. So what happened if someone in that temporary leadership spot suddenly let all that influence go straight to their head? What were the actual real-world consequences for a Stone Age leader who got arrogant, stopped listening, and just started looking out for number one? I mean, there were no police or courts to impeach them, right? So how did a prehistoric tribe handle a toxic leader? The answer to that is beautifully simple, honestly, because people weren't forced to follow someone just because they demanded it. A bad leader faced the ultimate prehistoric veto. People just simply stopped following them. In these tiny hunter-gatherer camps, literally everyone depended on everyone else just to wake up the next morning. Cooperation mattered so much more than domination. So if a leader ignored the group's needs, they instantly lost the group's respect. And without respect, poof, Their power just evaporated. To truly grasp why getting this dynamic right was so absolutely critical, let's look at a life or death scenario. Picture trying to coordinate a hunt for massive aggressive prey, but nobody's actually in charge. It's a total disaster. One overly eager guy jumps the gun and breaks cover early. Somebody else panics and waits way too long. Because they aren't working as a unit, the prey just bolts and escapes. It is literally the prehistoric equivalent of a horrible group project. And the consequence? The entire camp goes to bed starting. Let's move to and see how this builds when you actually introduce effective leadership. The whole picture changes. Contrast that total disaster we just talked about with an experienced hunter quietly, confidently organizing everybody before they strike. They're listening, they stay calm, they hand out specific roles. Now everybody knows exactly what they need to do. The ambush works perfectly, the hunt is a massive success. The tribe gets those desperate calories, and all because one person knew how to guide the rest. And that right there illustrates a massive, absolute, game-changing evolutionary advantage. Solid leadership fundamentally boosted cooperation. And what did cooperation actually mean back in the Stone Age? It literally meant more food in your belly. It meant you were significantly safer from predators and rival tribes. And most importantly, it meant a massively higher chance that your kids would actually survive to see adulthood. Groups with effective, cooperative leaders simply outlived the groups that stubbornly refused to work together. So the crucial point is this realization right here. Influence came from service, not power. Why did ancient humans elevate certain people to be leaders? It wasn't because they had the fanciest crown or because they were the biggest bully on the block. It was because they continually shared what they knew. They calmly solved the group's problems. They were entirely dedicated to keeping the community alive. They got to lead because they served the group's best interests, not their own. Way before the very first kings built their castles, and long before any written laws were ever carved into stone, leadership was already a thing. It just didn't look anything like the history books. It started out super intimately, around crackling campfires, on freezing hunts, and during the absolute hardest, darkest moments of human existence. The very first leaders were not rulers. They were guides. They were just ordinary people that the group consciously chose to follow because they made everybody stronger, together. Which brings us to a final, slightly provocative thought to leave you with today. When you look around at all the complex and, let's be honest, often frustrating power structures of our modern world, the politicians, the CEOs, the giant corporate hierarchies, ask yourself, what could today's leaders actually learn from our prehistoric guides? What would our world look like if we went back to a model where influence was strictly granted based on generosity, service, and your ability to make the entire group stronger? It is definitely something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.